consultants. Sorry, I have to read that because
Sorry, WMEC.
it's long-winded. So Ian is a manufacturing engineer with over 23 years experience working in the paper industry with Smurfit corrugated cases. He's been in the steel industry as a plant manager with Duggan Profiles and Steel Service Centre, and as a consultant in the wooden furniture manufacturing furniture industry. Specialises in lean ISO 9001 CE marking and health and safety legislation. He's carried out lean projects supported by Enterprise Ireland and is a lean service provider for Kenny and more for the local enterprise offices, and has helped many companies implement return to work safety protocols over the last 12 months, I presume on the COVID return to works. And I know you've done quite a bit in the woodworking industry specifically, Ian, so you have a good level of market knowledge there. So you're going to give us a presentation, and we'll if you have questions, you might throw them into the chat box there, and we'll try and address them as we go along, or stick up your hand or shout out after the presentation. So Ian, I'll let it over to you then after that, and we go from there.
Okay, thanks Owen. I just want to thank Bill for inviting me on here today to talk to you. So I'm going to have a quick, I'll just share my screen here first. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
Okay, no matter. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick introduction to CE marking for the construction products. And after that, then I'm going to have a quick just look at what changes Brexit has caused for people. So I'll crack on because there's a good bit in it, but I'm going to go through it fairly quickly now because you could spend weeks talking about CE marking. So I'll crack on. So firstly, why do I need CE marking? So I just have to get it here. So what is CE marking all about? So the added value of CE marking is that all EU countries must allow the selling of construction products bearing the CE mark. And as you as a manufacturer, when you affix the CE mark, you're saying that you're assuring that the performance of the product you're selling is the same as what you're declaring in your declaration of performance. So you can find the full text of the construction products regulations on that link below. So there's two types of CE marking. There's a compulsory CE marking through the SEN route, and a non-compulsory CE marking through the European Organization for Technical Assessments. And today we're only going to look at the compulsory CE marking route. So how do you know if you have to CE mark, if your CE marking is compulsory? So you need to go and look up your relevant journal arm standard in the official journal of the European Union. Now I've picked one that might be of interest to some people here. So I've searched for the EN 16034, which is for pedestrian door sets, industrial commercial garage doors, and openable windows. Product standard for performance characteristics, fire resisting, and our smoke control characteristics. Now this standard can only apply with other standards. When you see below, the EN 16334 should only apply together with EN 13241 or EN 14351. So the EN 13241 is the Euronorm standard for industrial, commercial, garage doors and gates. And the EN 14351, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, is for the windows and doors product standard, performance characteristics for windows and external pedestrian door sets. So there may be confusion about the difference between fire rating, which is this standard here, 16034, and just your normal product standard, which in the case of the windows and external pedestrian doors is 14355. So 14351-1 is for all windows and external pedestrian door sets. And if they are fire rated, then you apply the 16034. Now, so a lot of people make internal pedestrian door sets, and you can see that the EN 14351-2 for internal pedestrian door sets is not yet published. So you can't CE mark internal pedestrian door sets. yet. So how do you know if CE marking is compulsory? So if your product is in the scope of one of the standards, CE marking is voluntary during the coexisting period and compulsory at the end of the period. So you see for the 14351, it was voluntary, or sorry, it wasn't voluntary. There was a preceding Euronorm standard. If you look at the 16341, it was voluntary from the 1st 11 2016 and became mandatory on the 1st 11 2019. And for CE marking of windows and external pedestrian doors became mandatory from the 1st of the 11th 2019. And again, you cannot CE mark internal pedestrian doors yet. So you want to look at the, if your product's in the scope of one of these standards, CE marking is voluntary and during the coexistence period and compulsory at the end of it. You can search the tool in the CEN website to find the scope of the standards. You'll also find them on the NCEA webpage. You'll be able to download the scope for free without buying the standard. So the relevant information is for CE marking is in Annex ZA of that Euronorm standard. So there are some exemptions from CE marking. So the exemptions are cases where the product is individually manufactured or custom made for a given use, where the manufacturing of the product has to maintain traditional process to guarantee conservation of officially protected works, so heritage or historical works. And you should, good advice to contact your local point of contact to make sure that you're correct in your assumption. So I've just given the link to the government website there for your, to find your local point of contact. So your tasks as a manufacturer. So you need the following documents. As I said, your harmonized standard is the first thing you want to download. And you can purchase that from the NCEA website. And you need to check through that to see what other test methods and tabulated values are referenced in it that may be important. You're also going to need a factory production control system. So as part of your internal quality procedures, you're responsible for assessing the product performance and putting in place a written factory production control system similar to ISO 9001. The legal terminology used to describe this is assessment and verification of consistency of performance, AVCP, and the third-party verifier or verifiers is called a notified body. So the assessment of the products is done by defining the value of a list of characteristics called essential characteristics. You'll find a full list in the Annex ZA of the harmonized standard. It also includes the AVCP system for each essential characteristic. Now, depending on what your AV system, what is listed in the annex, it'll be either listed as 1 + 1, 2 + 3, or 4. And depending on which one it is, you will have different things you have to do. So I just gave an example here of 16034. That's under System 1. So you would need a factory production control. You'd need further testing and samples taken. You need the assessment of performance. You'll need a notified body then to do an initial inspection of the plant and the factory production control system. You'll need the notified body to do continuous surveillance, assessment, and evaluation of your factory production control system. In some cases, like in windows or doors, depending on where the doors are positioned, it could be self-certification. So the 16034 is for fire-rated doors. So it's obviously going to have a high system, but if you had system 3 or 4, you might be able to self-certify the products yourself. So that will be listed in the Annex ZA of the Euronorm standard. So there's some cases where you don't have to list you don't have to list essential characteristics. So in that case, you can just put a NDP. So you may decide if your customers don't care about some of the essential characteristics that you're not going to bother listing them and just list them as NDP. If you have to declare the performance of at least one essential characteristic. For certain essential characteristics, it could be that declaring NDP is not allowed. So you'll find this information again in Annex ZA of the harmonized standard. For some essential characteristics, you will not need to do any assessment because there is a generic value or declaration accepted at European level. So something like the fire rating for steel, you wouldn't have to retest that because there's a generic value that you can just put on your CE label. Background documents. So after the assessment of the essential characteristics, you should have following documents. So you have your initial type testing of the product, including the list of essential characteristics and the results of the assessment. You have your documented factory production control procedures, your certificate or certificates from the notified bodies, if required, your technical documentation where necessary. And note that you must archive all these documents in case you're asked by the Market Surveillance Authority. Again, I've put a link down to the left there for your local Market Surveillance Authority. You will have to keep these for 10 years after you last sell that product. So documents you provide to your customers. So you need to provide your declaration of performance, CE marking and accompanying information of the product, instructions and safety information, and if applicable, REACH information. So your declaration of performance, you have to number your declaration of performance, and on that then you will have 7 parts. So your unique identification code for the product type, the intended uses of that product, your manufacturer's name and address, your authorized representative, which is only applicable if you were importing a product. So if you were outside the EU and you wanted to put someone in as an authorized representative, you would need that. If not, if you're manufacturing in the EU, you don't need that, so you can delete it. Systems of AVCP, so whether it's system 1, 1+1 or 2, your harmonized standards that you're applying to, so if it's EN 16034, for example, the notified bodies, every notified body has a 4-digit number, and a list of your declared performances, and a link to the online copy of your declaration of performance. So when you have all them, now you're able to put your CE label. So the most important thing is to download the exact CE mark off the European Commission website. So it's a very specific mark, the dimensions of which are controlled. And you're obliged to include the last 2 digits of the year in which you do your CE marking. So an example of it is here. So you see the CE mark and the 4-digit numbers of the notified body, which would be in Ireland mainly, well, it could be lots of different people, but say, for example, the NCEA will have their own unique 4-digit code. Then you have your name and address of the manufacturer, the last 2 digits of the year you're affixed to CE mark, the reference number to your declaration of performance, then the European standard your CE mark refers to, the identification code for the product type, and then your intended use and your list of performances. And you don't need to put down your NDPs. Finally, you'll need safety instructions or fitting instructions and safety information. So as a manufacturer, you must draw up the instructions and safety information required for your product use. REACH information is probably not going to be applicable because you're not supplying chemicals. Okay, so that's a very quick run through how you go about CE marking. So as a result of Brexit, there's some various changes that have come into place since January. So on the 1st of January 2021, the EU and UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement came into effect. So that means that EU law remains unchanged and continues to apply for all products placed on the EU market. EU law no longer applies in the UK. The UK law applies to Great Britain only, and you have a Northern Ireland Protocol that came into effect. And UK notified bodies lost their status as EU notified bodies. So if you had a product certified by a UK body, they've lost their status as an EU notified body. And the UK Accreditation Service ceased to be a national accreditation body. So what hasn't changed is that the EU construction products regulations still apply to the construction products from the UK placed on the EU market. So products must be CE marked if required under construction products regulations. But the manufacturer must use an EU 27 notified body. So if you're importing something from the UK, they must use a EU notified body to certify their products. They have to have a valid EU declaration of performance, The only exception is self-certification products, where they didn't need a notified body, and UK manufacturers can still self-certify their products. The Irish binder regulations still apply to all products used in Ireland, and there's a link there to the building regulations if you need to go through them. So there's a new UK legal framework. So the UK legal framework has replaced the EU legislation. It applies to products in Great Britain only, so England, Scotland and Wales. It doesn't apply to Northern Ireland. UK product legislation is at the moment similar or the same as EU legislation. However, that can and will change, and due to Grenfell Tower, I think they're looking at publicising new documents. So if you are supplying to UK, you're going to need to keep an eye on the changes in their legislation. There's a new UK CE mark that replaces the CE mark. There's UK approved bodies replace the EU notified bodies. The UK designated standards replace the harmonised European standards. The UK declaration of performance replaces the EU declaration of performance. And customers of EU manufacturers customers EU importers or distributors become importers. So UK acceptance of CE marking. So UK product legislation has applied since 1st January 2021. CE mark construction products are accepted in GB until the 31st of December 2021. So from January next year, CE mark products are not accepted in GB. So what mark needs to be used? So from 1st of January next year, CE marked must be used for EU and can be used in Northern Ireland. The UK CE mark must be used in GB, and the CE UK NI mark, this mark can only be used in Northern Ireland because it's a CE mark product by a UK notified body. Dual marking. So dual marking is not prohibited, so a product can be placed on any one of these markers providing relevant marks are fixed. The exception is the combination of the CE marking with the CE UK NI marking. And each marking will require its own declaration of performance and AVCP system, certificate and supporting documents. So if you're supplying from the EU to the UK, you will need a UK approved body to approve your UK CA mark. And if you're in the UK supplying to EU, you will need an EU approved body to certify your CE mark. So importing products from GB. So if you're an importer, you become an importer instead of a distributor. So if you were buying products in from UK that were CE marked, you were just a distributor. So from January next year, you're an importer. So an importer has the same legal responsibility as the manufacturer, and will have to ensure that the manufacturer has carried out the proper conformity assessment procedure, has produced the required technical documentation, has affixed the CE marking for all products being placed on the market. You must include your name, your registered trademark or trademark and address at which you can be contacted on the products, and keep a copy of the EU Declaration of Performance for 10 years after the product has been placed in the market. You'll also need access to the technical file if you're required to, if the local authority requires to see it. So buying products from Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland will be treated as a member of the EU single market. The current rules will still apply. Products marked with CE mark and certified by an EU notified body can be sold in Northern Ireland. An EU declaration of performance must be available for them. However, products marked with the new CE UK NI mark cannot be placed on the EU market. Okay, that's the presentation.
Well, Ian, yeah, there's a lot of information there.
Yeah, I stopped sharing now. How do I stop sharing on?
It's on the bottom again, I think, is it?
Stop sharing, okay. Yeah, now sorry, I flew through it. There's a lot of information, so it's not, we're not going to be able to take it all in one go. but it does show that there's a lot of complications going to arise, particularly from the UKCA marking, and if you're importing products from UK. And I know maybe you had some questions. We spoke about CE marking of external door sets and things like that. So there's a lot in it. I covered as much as I could, and hopefully I haven't confused everybody. Everybody's very quiet.
I think that was excellent and clear. So, has anyone any questions? I suppose just to start there. No, we discussed in there yesterday about fire-rated doors, and there's a bit of confusion in the sense that fire-rated internal doors, which is 16034/2, was supposed to come into place in November 19, and that was it was a harmonised standard for fire-rated doors in the UK market. Brexit stopped that from happening, in that the standard never got harmonised. But there's often requests for CE marking on doors, internal doors, which doesn't exist at the moment. And we discussed this at length, and it's very hard to get some information on this, but you may get asked by architects or interiors. That doesn't exist at the moment. The standard has been created, but it hasn't been activated, even though it was given the 1st of November 2019. So we were looking for some clarification on it before today, but
no, well, it's fairly clear. It's not publicized. So if you go back to the we can share those slides. I mean, I kind of went through it step by try to go through logically how you would find out, but it's definitely not published. And when it is published, you'll have a certain amount of time to put it in place. It's normally 3 years, but it can be anything from 1 year to 4 years or whatever. But you will be given time to implement it. But just one thing that I think people confuse is that the 16034 is a fire rating standard, and the 14351-1 is a product standard. So you can currently you need to do them separately. So you can CE mark, say for example, an external door set that's not fire rated. So you're CE marking under that under the EN 14351, and then you add that to 16034 to make it a fire rated door. So you have two different standards. So when the internal door standard, the 13351-2, is publicized, it means that all internal door sets need to be CE marked, not just fire rated ones. The fire rated ones go in conjunction with the 16034.
Yeah.
So just for anyone who this might apply to, I mean, don't forget that you'll have to put in place something similar to an ISO 9001 system with all your procedures and your quality checks. And all these things are not quick to do. So you're as well off start looking at this now, because there's no point in waiting until it's too late. Start when you don't need to do it. And if you are doing external door sets, it is mandatory since the 1st 11 2019. So providing your door falls under the scope. So my advice would be download the scope, go onto the NCEA website, type in the relevant Euronorm standard, and you will be able to download the scope for free, and you can purchase the Euronorm standard, which will include the Annex ZA in it. And it's only about €62. And you can download that, so you can have all that done in an hour, and you'll have all your questions answered, if that's helpful.
As a matter of interest, have we anyone on the call who is CE marking products at the moment, be it for Ireland or the UK? Silence. Okay.
Silence. Is there anyone, I mean, the UK CE mark is, if you're purchasing CE mark products from the UK at the moment, I mean, you're going to want to write to your suppliers and see what's their intention in the future, because they may decide that they're only going to do a UK CA mark and they've no intention of CE marking it, and then you won't be, you can't import it. So this has to be sorted out before the end of this year. See Joe with a question there.
Look there.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So just a quick question. If you import a product from Northern Ireland and then you subsequently export it to the UK, how is that handled?
If you export to the UK, the product is going to need to be UKCA marked. So I mentioned dual marking there. So to bring it, so first of all, in Northern Ireland is very confusing because they have this CE NI mark. And that is a mark that is, the product is CE marked to Euronorm standard, but by a UK approved body. So it can't be sold in the EU. So you can't import one with the CE NI mark on it. You can't import that to the EU. What you could import is a CE mark product, and if it's going to be, if you're going to send it on then to the UK, it needs to be dual marked. So it needs to be CE and UKCA marked, which means that that manufacturer will have a notified body from the EU checking their facilities and a notified body from the UK. Now, Enterprise Ireland have said that if they have enough interest, they may set up an office in the UK so they can become both. And I know B.Eng Trada have possibly looking at setting up one in Europe. But that means that they have to set up an office and have people employed in it to do that. So I know from Enterprise Ireland, they have, or from the NCEA, they have said that if there was enough requirement for that, they would look at doing that. And that would mean that they could CA mark your product for you, but they must have a business registered in the UK to do that and be approved by the UK authorities to do that.
Thanks, Ian. Clear.
Yeah, in other words, it's just making business harder. Michael, you want to come in there?
Yeah, I suppose, thanks for the presentation, Ian. It's great, and I think you did a good job in making probably something that's reasonably complicated understandable to a great extent. Can you speak to any experience with companies who are importing from the UK since kind of Brexit has taken effect, and particularly with their responsible or understanding of responsibilities, you know, as an importer, you know, stepping into, like, I suppose, stepping into the manufacturer's shoes? Like, have you been engaged with clients and issues arising, or what's going on, I suppose?
No, I'm not sure there's too many people, are people aware of it? I mean, COVID has probably stunted a lot of this conversation. People aren't, you know, a lot of factories aren't even working. So I don't know how aware people are of it. And there is a transition period until the end of this year. But my advice would be to write to your supplier and ask them what their position is. Ask them to clarify in writing what their position is in terms of going forward with a CE mark. Because if they don't CE mark the product at all, you know, you can't sell it on the European market. And if they do CE mark it, then as an importer, you have to be a lot more connected to them. So you'll have to have your name and address, as I said, on the product, and you will have to have access to their technical files. But in terms of other people asking these questions, no, I'd say people aren't necessarily aware of it yet.
I suppose the point back to this network and to, okay, so we have a lot of obviously furniture manufacturers and finished product manufacturers. Where does CE marking kind of draw the line? Is it structural products that CE marking is important, or? No,
so what I just discussed was CE marking under the construction products regulation. But you would have other, some of the furniture, I think we had a question yesterday, which some of the children's furniture came under the TIE regulations, and for children under, relevant to children under the age of 14. I know another customer I work with, I'm doing lean, so I never really got into a CE marking, but he does chairs for your medical chairs for the HSE, and they're CE marked. So there's thousands of CE marks. So you have to know what CE mark you're looking for. I mean, if you're in an industry, you should know already. If not, Google it, it'll come up. You know, CE marking for children's furniture, CE marking for whatever. Do Google it, it'll come up, it'll give you an idea of what the Euronorm standard is. Then you can search for the standard. See it published in the journal, European journal, and download it off the NCEA website and go into more detail. But I couldn't possibly cover all the CE mark products, and I haven't. My experience with CE marking would have been for the construction products regulation would have been more in the steel industry. So that would be where I would have done testing for both for self-certification, and I'd have been involved in having UK bodies test for various different things. So load tables and fire ratings, that kind of thing. But there is, as I have done internal testing ourselves, so which would have meant that you just do the file yourself. Nobody comes and looks at it, but you must do it. You CE mark your product and you take responsibility for it. So I know some of your products will be under that classification, which is much easier than needing an external body.
Right. I think Amanda there has a question. Do you want to come in, Amanda?
Hiya. Yeah, we are approved under the BM Trada Fire Door Maintenance Scheme, and we are currently carrying out work under this scheme. And we've been trying to get this answer. Is that scheme still recognised and allowed in the EU?
Yeah. Well. So what's happened is the likes of BM Trada have lost their ability to do initial type testing for a CE marked product. So your fire doors at the moment aren't CE marked, a standard fire door. And the BM Trada test results and the Q mark are relevant to the building products regulations. So they're not CE marked products, so they haven't lost their ability to be used. It'll be up to a specifier when they're designing the building to decide what product they want to use. And if it's an internal door set that doesn't need to be CE marked, then nothing has changed. Does that make it clear?
Yeah, and so who can approve that? What do you say, a building?
The building regulations. So everything you sell just has to meet the building regulations.
Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah, no, I understand. Thank you.
Your BCAR teams that exist now today and pre-approval on certifications and stuff like that comes into play there. But yeah, we have similar to Amanda there on fire doors. Michael O'Sullivan has a question: where does a bespoke company stand? Sorry, and how can you CE mark everything?
Everything.
Right.
Clarify that, go on.
Yeah, Michael, do you want to come in there and ask that question?
So if it make it clear, Michael, you only have to CE mark something if there's a harmonized European standard and if your product falls within that scope.
Okay, do you want to?
Yeah, this kind of relates to this question about how do you CE mark everything. I just had a quick Google on the website, and I'm stumped as to what to put into the code to look for. But we make bespoke furniture too. And my question is a bit like Michael's, like, at what point do I need to start thinking about CE marking for the products I produce? And
okay, so you're not making a construction product.
Sorry?
You don't manufacture a construction product.
No, but we supply into construction sites in the sense that if there's a furniture to be made, or it could be a wall cladding or something like that we might be asked to do. You were saying a minute ago there's a certain discretion in terms of deciding whether a CE mark is required on the building. Did I understand that correctly?
So there's certain products that are compulsory CE markable, and then often most products aren't. So if you're building, if you set a wall for inside an office or something, I'm certainly not aware of a CE mark for that. And if there's no harmonized European standard, it doesn't have to be CE marked. So then it goes back, if there's no requirement to CE mark, it goes back to the designer and specifier. So it depends what, for example, do they want fire doors for some reason? And then they have to decide yes or no. Then they decide is it 30 minutes or 60 minutes. So the specifier engineer is making that decision. So you can make lots of one-off products that don't fall into a CE mark.
So it's not critical unless somebody asks for it.
No, I wouldn't say that. Whatever your product is, I mean, if people want to send in lists of products to Bill, we can try and find out for you. But I mean, I'd be Googling it and see, is there a standard for it? It needs to be fairly specific. Yeah. Or you could ask your local authority. But if you want to maybe send in a direct query to Bill, we can see, can we find out for you?
Sure. I mean, what we make changes every week. So there isn't one thing that we turn out every day, you know, the kind of way. And then maybe to go back to the searching of standards on the CEN side or the NCEA side, it's a bit of a very technical document that you need to put information into. And where do I start understanding what's required here to even search for standards? I suppose I think that may be useful to get as a help file to say, this is what you put in here and this is what you're looking for here, you know, to try and search for standards is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, like you can download all the standards on the construction products regulations. You can look at all of them. So
but I don't know which ones to look for.
Well, they're listed. There'll be names. So say the one I mentioned there, the 16034 standard. That's a list of hundreds of standards, and you can download a PDF file with them all on it for the construction products regulations. And you'll have to read through them all. Like some are to concrete, as I say, steel, single skin roof sheeting, roof purlins, timber cleats, structural metal decking. They're all on and different kind of Euronorm standards. So if the standard isn't there, then you don't have to concern yourself with it. Like and maybe if this is helpful, if you cannot mark, if you're supplying different products to put up your door and your door frame, and they're individual products, they can't be CE marked. There's only door sets can be CE marked that are manufactured just a full door set. So it is complicated. I think maybe if Bill wants to help look for that, but there is thousands of them. It is.
Yeah, I think for a lot of the people on here, there's a lot of bespoke manufacturing going on, and you're making to a design of a client or a construction company or whatever it might be. So, you know, it's kind of, are you going to, you know, you could be making 10 different products in a week, I think, for some companies here, and do I have to go search every one of those?
Like as I said, Owen, just to clarify, you can get a list of all of them for the construction products regulations.
Yeah.
Because I would say historically, I say made gutters and flashings, which they don't come under any CE mark, whereas single skin roof sheeting and purlins would have. So I would have gone and searched for all these things. There is Euronorm standards for gutters, flashings, but it's not publicized. It's not a harmonized standard, so you don't have to CE mark them.
Yeah, I had an understanding that CE marking was around structural products where performance was important. For example, a chair that you mentioned, you know, somebody has to sit safely on a chair, but if there isn't a major safety element, there's a better chance it doesn't require to be CE marked. Is that fair to be said?
Yeah, I mean the chairs, it was more for, I think the CE marking of those particular chairs I spoke about was, I think, from bacterial perspective and the cleanliness of the chairs, because they were for patients. So, I mean, you have to, if you were to try and find out what that CE mark is, I would just Google the product name and see, the CE mark for medical chairs and see what comes up, and you'd help you along the way. But that's not on the construction products regulation. So there's loads, like your ironmongery on the doors are CE marked.
Yeah.
So there is.
Sure.
Ian, if you're exporting 1 hour fire door sets to the UK, do they require to be CE marked?
1 hour fire door. So Bill, you're looking at what standard that is. If are they external doors or internal? Internal, they don't have to be. External, they do.
Right. And is there a case where the internal doors will have to be in time, or is that in
they will
down the line?
They will, but if you're exporting to the UK, don't forget now the UK, from next year on, there will be no CE mark in the UK. It'll be UK CA mark, and they're harmonized, their standards will change. So they're going to have their own standards. So we have a Euronorm standard for an internal door set, and they will have a standard, British standard, for an internal door set, but it mightn't be the same.
Right.
So you have to keep up with their regulations if you're exporting to UK.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Eugene, you wanted to come in there with a question?
Yes, please. Just a quick question. It's a little bit off maybe the fire door side, but just to understand, if you're dealing with a company in the UK who are manufacturing, let's say, a tool that is used in the construction industry, and it's coming into our warehouse in Dublin, and then we have a customer who's buying it in Cork and another customer who's buying it in Belfast, do we need to have two separate distinctive CE marks, a UK NI mark, and that for that tool that's coming in from a manufacturer in the UK, even though it's the exact same tool, that we couldn't supply the same one with the same marking on it to the Cork company and the Belfast company?
So once it's CE marked, you can supply it to Northern Ireland and Cork. They are the same because Northern Ireland is in the EU in those terms. So the CE mark is acceptable. But what you'd want to be careful of is if you buy a product from Northern Ireland and it has the CE NI mark, you couldn't supply that.
Yes.
in Ireland.
Okay. But for that tool, the manufacturer in the UK would not necessarily need to put the NI mark on it so that we could supply it to a Northern Ireland company. Once they have the CE marking on it, it'll be fine.
Yeah, and they wouldn't be able to put the NI, like I said, the NI mark is for companies in Northern Ireland who manufacture to CE standards but are assessed by a British body. It's a bit of a strange one.
Okay.
I don't even know why they'd want to do that, but some people might not want to use, they might just sell in Northern Ireland, and they might not. They might want to use their local body, not to have to get one from the EU.
Yes. Okay.
Thanks, Eugene.
Query in there on chats.
Yeah, sorry. Then.
There's a query there on chats from Owen Walsh.
Owen Walsh has a question in here. If I'm buying a component of a fire door from the UK, does it need to be CE marked? I assume you mean if you're buying a door blank or something to produce a door, does it need to be CE marked? So
there's no. So individual doors aren't CE marked at the moment. What's CE marked is when you manufacture the door set.
Yes.
So then you apply the CE mark to the door set.
He's asking about seals here as well. So the intermittent seals, I have a feeling they are marked, CE marked already. So yeah, it's come. I think the answer there, Owen Walsh, is that ultimately the fire door set doesn't need to be CE marked at this moment in time. That is going to change over the coming years. So do any of the components need to be CE marked to make up that door? I think the answer is no at this moment in time, but that is likely to change over the coming period of time.
I think it's worth, certainly for Owen, who's, I mean, you do need to CE mark external fire doors, or external door sets. And I think it's a good time to start working on your ISO standards and starting to build up a file on all these things, so it doesn't come on you too fast.
Amanda, you have another question there.
Sorry, yeah, like one of your other speakers there, we are very much involved in bespoke joinery. Is there such a body or such a company that could come in, go and kind of walk through the products and say this needs to be CE marked or that doesn't need to be CE marked, because it's very confusing?
I guess the answer there, Ian, is someone like you, is it? That this is an advisor who knows the space, or someone like Trada?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's so many different Euronorm standards. I think if they wanted to give us an outline, we could try and look at it. People tend to specialize in certain products. I mean, I think probably for your network, it's no harm, maybe for yourselves and even between us, we put together a list or try and document a list of products outside the construction products regulations that might apply to people.
that might be a good exercise, Bill, that maybe. And
Yeah, I think that's something we could do, because I do know that there are furniture items that do. And I think, Amanda, if you send me a wee email, I'll approach Strada with your query and see what I can find out from them, okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Bill, could I suggest that everyone that's on the call that has an interest here emails you their potential list of products, and we go and review that full list of products and have an answer as to yes, no, or maybe on that list of products, and publish it at a later date?
Yeah, that's something we could take on, but it take a little while to get through that.
It is complicated. That's why, if you have any doubt, you need to start, because each Euronorm standard can link to several other standards and test standards, so they can get out of hand fairly easily. So there's no harm having a chart for your network about all these standards and how they interlink.
I mean, if you're in office furniture, for example, you do need, if there's any motorization, if there's any rise and fall, or any kind of motors, or in bedding either, if there's any motors involved, you have to have CE marking now. That's what gets you into furniture. I mean, for example, if you're in the kitchen manufacturing business and you're supplying a kitchen for a handicapped person in a wheelchair, the motorization there has to be CE marked.
But you can see how specific these things are. I mean, it's impossible for anyone to know all the answers. But if you had a list of questions, we could then look at those areas.
Well, we look at it in more depth and see what we can come back with that would act as a sort of a guide and if you like an awareness that we could give you to be watching out for these things.
Right, there's two hands up now, but Eugene, is yours up since the last question, or have you another question?
No, sorry, that was from the last question. My apologies. My apologies.
Can you do?
Yeah, my question just followed on from what Bill was saying. So, if you're motorizing a piece of furniture, is it the motor, the drive system that has to be CE marked? Is that sufficient, or is it the whole assembly has to be CE marked after you've installed the moving part?
I'm not absolutely sure. I would have to check on that, and I can do that with EFIC, because they have a whole specialist department working on this.
Yeah.
So I'll come back to you on that.
I suppose maybe even putting some links up on the IWFM website for those departments would be helpful for people to begin to start searching, they're on their own, rather than being the dog's body trying to figure it all out for us.
Right. Okay, I appreciate that.
I see James Corbett is sending in links here just in terms of the stuff we're discussing. So
that last one there, it might be useful to you, Knut, because it kind of outlines the requirements for electrical furniture, but it does seem to be anything motorized. I was kind of half thinking, if you put any, if you put LED lighting into if there's any electrical component within a piece of furniture, that you might have to go down that road, but it doesn't seem to say that. It just seems to focus on any motorized elements within the piece of furniture.
Right, I want to look at
but
that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of research to be done.
Okay. Well, look, hopefully what this network will be able to give us over time, it'll obviously take time to build this knowledge and to be able to share it and get it focused for us to log in and not have to spend all this time at it. Do click on those links if you lose them once the call is over, if they're of interest. Ian, you'll put together your presentation, will you, that we can send out to the group?
Yeah, how do I have it just to, can I email it to you or email it to Bill?
There, she'll or Bill.
Yeah,
well,
will do.
We can send a recording of this out to anybody who wants it. It's available.
Yeah, I'll send a presentation on straight away and you can email it out.
Have we any further questions or comments, or Bill, do you want to finish off with any news?
No, well, I mean, basically the only news I have today is in relation to EFIC. The annual report is published. If anybody'd like a copy of it, I'm more than happy to send it to them, but I don't want to be sending stuff out to you that's not of interest to you. There is a lot of extremely interesting information in that report. I'd also like to say congratulations to John Cisco for winning the Wood Awards this year for the Centre Parks work. It is brilliant. I think some of you, Michael, I know, has been there and found it very satisfactory. And Cisco are a very strong supporter of IWFM. So I'd like to congratulate them. And Alan Meredith was also, he's not a member of ours just yet. He was one of the winners, as was Kime Factor from Hill Pickett Furniture. So that was in the Wood Awards. Also, I did just let you know that Enterprise Ireland are developing a whole sector. It's a specialist sector for the wood the wood industry, to focus on the development of the wood industry. So that's something that we'll be feeding information out to you again fairly shortly.
Owen, I'm conscious that you're wrapping up now at this stage, but just with reference to the steering group meeting last night, I thought the point you raised in relation to MDF and supply chains, and particularly as well with people who may not be back, is positive. I don't know if you wanted to flag, it's something people should be thinking about. I think there's constraints, and there'll be bottlenecks, and there'll be all sorts of things to deal with as business gets back and manufacturing gets back. But if somebody's not busy at the minute and they're not thinking about it, it might just be a word to the wise, Yeah,
there's a raw material basically on the market, and our biggest interest is MDF, but it's wide ranging is a major problem at the moment. Shortage of material, increasing prices, and it's just not there on a worldwide basis. Normally the whole world isn't in the same direction it is at this moment in time. And when we see stuff like the container ships in Egypt there, all these things are having major effects. But basically, yeah, if you're not manufacturing at the moment and you're going to come back next month or whatever, there is serious raw material increases. We've seen MDF at least 25% since January. Just got notified actually since our conversation of another 10% price increase on MDF again, when a 7% one hasn't been activated yet. So this is going to be a big problem. Getting raw materials is going to be a big issue. But hopefully we're heading into a busy period. Solid timber, I believe, similar story, that's climbing on a weekly basis. So it's just something to be conscious if you're not operating at the moment. Trying to buy ahead now is maybe something to be looking at. Yeah. Okay. All right. Ian, thank you for today. You're there to anyone that wants to reach out to you or look for some advice or whatever. You're there, and I think people may have got your contact details already, but please contact Bill or Shamim there, and they'll pass them on. Thank you. That was very good.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a million.
Thank you all. We'll have another meeting in 2 weeks' time. James, do you want to say anything about that? No. Okay.
I was muted, sorry. I haven't settled on the dates, but I contacted both speakers, so we'll have someone talking to us about microvellum, and we're going to have a lean consultant as well from WMEC Ltd. Okay. The next month.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay. Have a nice weekend, everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.